device to a scene. Make sure that you select the cam link as your device, and you should now see what your camera sees. You'll notice that we have our image already, and we haven't even hit the record button on the camera itself. So please do not hit the record button on your camera when trying to use it as a streaming device. It is not necessary, and it can potentially be harmful as it might cause your camera to overheat and auto shut itself off in the middle of a stream. Now with that out of the way, I personally like to come in here next and set the type to custom, so I make sure that I can control everything. From here, you'll want to choose your camera's highest quality output, which for me is 1920 by 1080, and then we're going to match our output FPS. We'll select YU/Y2, and then 709 for the color space, and partial for the color range, so it matches the range that your viewers will watch your streams at. And then finally, select disable for buffering. So now that we have our camera working inside of OBS, it is now time to change some settings on the camera itself to make sure that we have the best picture quality for our streams. Now, when it comes to cameras, the majority of the advice that you will see out there is to do as little image processing on the camera itself. While that is true for taking pictures and recording videos in most situations, in our situation, in terms of live streaming, we do not want that. We want the opposite. In general, when it comes to live streaming, we want to do as little processing on the computer itself. So in our case, we want to do all of the image processing on our cameras itself. So I'm going to share with you guys the exact settings that I use on my A50-100 so we can get the best image quality without having to do any processing on our computer. Let's start by bringing up the menu and then navigating over to your file format. Here you'll want to choose the highest possible quality, and for me, that's X80CS. Next, let's choose our frame rate. I personally like to use my camera at 30 FPS for streaming, but you're more than welcome to choose 60 FPS if you prefer that level. Next, let's tab over to our focus mode and make sure that continuous autofocus is selected and that our focus area is set to wide. This will make sure that our camera is constantly tracking us no matter where we are in the frame. And now for the drag speed and the track duration, I like to keep these at normal, but you're more than welcome to play around with these settings, but I typically find in most streaming scenarios, leaving these at normal typically provides the best autofocus. And then finally for autofocus, tab over to make sure that face detection is turned on. So remember when we place this camera into manual mode, well, we are now ready to adjust those manual settings to make sure that we have the proper exposure for our camera. Let's begin by setting our shutter speed. The general rule of thumb here is that we want this number to be double our frame rate in order to have the most natural looking motion on camera. In my case, since I chose to use my camera at 30 FPS, I'm going to select 1/60 as my shutter speed. But if you went ahead and chose 60 FPS, you'll want to choose 1/125 as it's the closest shutter speed to 120. Now that we have our shutter speed set, the next thing that we'll manually want to adjust is our f-stop. To make things easy, just drop this to the lowest value that you see. This will let in as much light as possible into the sensor, and for most streaming scenarios, that's exactly what you want. Now, the final piece of setting our exposure is our ISO. I like to keep this on auto, so that way the camera can use ISO to adjust the exposure for us when we're streaming. With that said, because we are relying on the ISO to auto adjust our exposure for us, we're going to want to make sure that we have enough light coming in on us when we're streaming. If you don't have enough light on you in the scenario, your ISO will skyrocket and you'll start to notice a bunch of fuzzy noise in your image, and that is the exact opposite of what we want. So with those settings complete, your image quality should be looking pretty good now, but there are a couple of other things that we can still do to improve it even more. Like I mentioned earlier, most camera people like to do as little processing on the camera itself as possible. So they like to shoot in what are called flat picture profiles, where it just really desaturates the image, and then they take that footage, bring it over to the computer, and then tweak it to make it look absolutely amazing. But since we are trying to avoid having the computer process as much as possible, we are going to tweak some more settings on the camera itself to produce something similar. So let's head back to our menu now, and let's head over to creative style. Now this whole thing is going to be a bit subjective, and you can play around with these settings yourself, but I personally like to use the standard style and then customize it. Now the first setting within the standard style is the contrast. I like to bump this up to +1 as I tend to like the look of it, and I find that anything more than this has noticeably crushed blacks and blown out whites, so I like +1. The next thing is saturation. Now I personally like a more saturated look, so I bump this all the way up to +3, But if you find it to be a bit too intense, you are more than welcome to try out something like Plus 2. Now, if your skin tone looks a bit off in the color with this extra saturation, we'll be able to fix that in just a second, but let's finish setting up this style first. The last setting is sharpness. I have mine here set at +1, and any more than this, I start to notice that I have weird artifacts in my hair. But again, you are more than welcome to try out different values here to see what. Now that we have our style complete, there is one last thing that we need to do, and that is to set our white balance. Head over to the menu again, and let's select white balance. Now, for most people, I recommend toggling down until you get to the temperature adjustment. Here, you can play around with the temperature to get it as close as possible to what it actually looks like in the room. And once you are happy with the value, you are done. But for those of you who want to try and have the absolute best image, you can toggle down to a custom white balance. Here, it will bring up a color spectrum that you can use to adjust your balance more precisely. And this is what I choose to use, but again, using that first method of the temperature adjustment should be more than good enough for the majority of people when trying to find a good white balance. With those settings complete, your camera's image quality should be looking absolutely amazing now. Right now, you are currently seeing footage from my A5100, and this is exactly what it looks like on my stream. I'm extremely happy with the way that this image quality looks. I think it looks absolutely great when you're streaming, and it's also flexible enough to do things like show you guys what's on my phone if I'm streaming, and then have it refocus back on me. And it's also flexible enough of if I start my stream in the daylight and over time it starts to become nighttime, the ISO will auto adjust for us and keep us looking excellent. So with all of those steps complete, your Sony Alpha camera should now be looking absolutely amazing for live streaming. If this video was helpful for you, be sure to subscribe for more videos related to streaming, and be sure to give the video a thumbs up. And also leave a comment below on what kind of streaming tech video you would like to see from me next. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
More information, visit chicago.gov/. With the installation of overriders and auto liners. It's easier than ever.
But anyway, today we are going to be covering how to set up your Sony your cameras for live streaming. I'm going to show you how to set up the Sony A5100, which will cover the A5100, the A6000. I think those are the only two. I'm going to cover the A6100, which will cover the A61, 64, and 6600. And some of the newer ones, the A7S3, like that menu is completely different. But and then I think I'm also going to go downstairs and I'll grab the ZV-1 and show you how to set that one up as well, just so that I'm covering all the Sony cameras that I have here to show you how to set them up for live streaming. So let's go ahead and get to that. Man, your picture is so crisp and clear. Phew! Amazing. Yes, it is. Thank you so much for noticing. We work hard on this. We work hard to make these shots look good. And we have a workshop. If you want to make yours look this good, if you head over here, livestreamingpros.com/studio, you can build your own studio that looks like this. I show you how to do it in a workshop. A workshop that gives you the step-by-step instructions of how to build a set, how to choose the room, how to set up your light, how to set up your camera, blah, 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 everything you need for a studio. So go check that out. All right, here we go. Let's get into the camera settings. So I have right now the Sony A5100 sitting here in front of me. That is this camera. I'm right now using the Sony A6400, this camera right here. However, I will not be using the 6400 after today. I'm moving to the A6100. Because the A6100 is actually the camera that I recommend you guys use. And you're always like, hey, what camera are you using? And I say the A6400, and you're like, oh, I bought it. Like, no, don't buy the 6400 because it's the exact same camera as the 6100, only the color profiles that you don't need. So I'm going to change camera so that I don't lie on camera, because I could just say, oh, I'm using the A6100. That's a lie. If I do some kind of tour video or something, there's going to be somebody who's going to see the camera and then I say, oh, that's the 6400 on it. That dude's going to say A6100. What a liar. Okay, and I don't want that. I don't want people calling me a liar. So here we go. This is the Sony A5100. The first thing you're going to do, my audio isn't synced up. Yeah, it is. That's on you. Rise up.
How do I get this?
My audio is perfectly synced. Okay, here we go. I'm going to click on the menu button. The first thing you're going to want to do is click on menu and then go to the first page and shoot mode. In shoot mode, you're going to want to set this to movie mode right there. And then in movie mode, you're going to want it on manual. So click on the M. And now I've got control of this completely manually. Now I'm going to go back in. So you can see that I have my ISO or my shutter speed at 1/125. You can see that changing down there. The 80, 100, 125, 160. You see that down there? All I'm doing to change that is I'm turning the dial on the back. This dial right here, I'm just turning it. I didn't push it or anything. I'm just turning it, and that's changing my shutter speed. Okay? I stream at 60 frames per second, so I want my shutter speed to be 1/125. If you're streaming at 30 frames per second, you want it to be 1/60. You want your shutter speed to be double your frame rate. So again, if you're streaming out at 30 frames per second, set it to 60. If you're streaming at 60 frames per second, like I do, set it to 1/125. Okay? Now, we want to set the aperture. So I'm going to push the button to the right once. Oops. My audio is perfectly synced. Okay, here we go. 100, because the A60-100 is actually the camera that I recommend you guys use. And I was like, hey, what camera are you using? And I say the A6400, and you're like, oh, I bought it. Like, no, don't buy the 6400 because it's the exact same camera as the 6100, only with color profiles that you don't need. So I'm going to change camera so that I don't lie on camera, because I could just say, oh, I'm using the A6100. That's a lie. If I do some kind of tour video or something, there's going to be somebody who's going to see the camera, and then I say, oh, that's the 6400 on it. That dude's been saying A6100. What a liar. Okay, and I don't want that. I don't want people to call me a liar. So here we go. This is the Sony A5100. The first thing you're going to do, my audio isn't synced up. Yeah, it is. That's on you, Brizello. My audio is perfectly synced. Okay, here we go. I'm going to click on the menu button. The first thing you're going to want to do is click on menu and then go to the first page and shoot mode. In shoot mode, you're going to want to set this to movie mode right there. And then in movie mode, you're going to want it on manual. So click on the M. And now I've got control of this completely manually. Now I'm going to go back in. So you can see that I have my ISO or my shutter speed at 1/125. You can see that changing down there. The 80, 100, 125, 160. You see that down there? All I'm doing to change that is I'm turning the dial on the back. This dial right here, I'm just turning it. I didn't push it or anything. I'm just turning it, and that's changing my shutter speed. Okay? I stream at 60 frames per second, so I want my shutter speed to be 1/125. If you're streaming at 30 frames per second, you want it to be 1/60. You want your shutter speed to be double your frame rate. So again, if you're streaming out at 30 frames per second, set it to 60. If you're streaming at 60 frames per second, like I do, set it to 1/125. Okay? Now, we want to set the aperture. So I'm going to push the button to the right once. Oops. It already had gotten out of that menu. I'm going to turn it, get it on that, then push it to the, oh wait, what the heck? Hold on here. Hold on here. Okay, it's down, push down, sorry. So after you push, okay, video mode, manual, here we go. One more time. I'm gonna turn the dial, that's gonna turn it to 125, then I push down, that changes it to my aperture. Okay, this is how much light comes in. So you can see as the higher I go, the darker it gets, right? Darker, 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 darker. The lower you go, the more light's coming in the camera, which means that's what's gonna give you the shallow depth of field, the blur in the background. So if I put my hand,
Great. Looking at a code.
Okay, it's down. Push down. Sorry. So after you push, okay, it's video mode, manual. Here we go. One more time. I'm going to turn the dial. That's going to turn it to 125. Then I push down. That changes it to my aperture. Okay, this is how much light comes in. So you can see as the higher I go, the darker it gets. All right, darker, 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 darker.
Okay. How do I get to this? Got it.
The lower you go, the more light's coming in the camera, which means that's what's going to give you the shallow depth of field, the blur in the background. So if I put my hand up here, let's autofocus. I don't have the autofocus set up yet, so that's not going to work. But anyway, once I set the autofocus up, that'll work. And so now I got that set, and now what I want to do is adjust my ISO. So on the same dial, I'm going to push the button on the back dial right here. I'm going to push that to the right. That brings up my ISO settings. Now I'm gonna adjust my ISO until it looks as bright as I want it to look. I'm gonna set it at 200 for now. That looks cool. I don't want to switch shoot modes. No, I don't want to switch modes. Shoot mode. Okay, so now we're set. 125, f1.4, ISO 200. Now I'm gonna go back into the menu and I'm gonna go over to focus. I want to make sure that I'm on continuous autofocus. Okay, autofocus continuous. Go back in the menu. Focus area center. And then autofocus drive speed high. This is kind of a personal preference. I like it to be fast in case I'm showing something on the screen. When I want something up there, I want it to go right down, right? I don't want to wait around if I'm showing off of a product or something. I want that thing to be in focus right away. So I like fast. If you set it to normal, it's more like if somebody's turning it manually, like they're focusing it. Manually, that's kind of what it does. But I like fast. So you can go normal or you can go slow. Slow is kind of like a rack focus kind of thing. And then over here, so you've got picture effects and stuff on this, the Sony a5100. I don't use them. However, I do use this one. I use Toy on Luria's set. That's what kind of gives it a vignette around the edges. So you can see like it's a little bit dark around the edges here on the outside. So you can play with it and see if you like any of those modes. They are there. I want it to go right down, right? I don't want to wait around if I'm showing off of a product or something. I want that thing to be in focus right away. So I like fast. If you set it to normal, it's more like if somebody's turning it manually, like they're focusing it manually. That's kind of what it does. But I like fast. So you can go normal or you can go slow. Slow is kind of like a rack focus kind of thing. And then over here, so you've got picture effects and stuff on this, the Sony a5100. I don't use them. However, I do use this one. I use Toy on Luria's set. That's what kind of gives it a vignette around the edges. So you can see like it's a little bit dark around the edges here on the outside. So you can play with it and see if you like any of those modes. They are there. But for overhead shot and stuff, I usually leave it off. But what the heck, I'm going to leave it on this time. Now we're going to go over to, just keep on going over. Okay, none of that. So I'm just going to go through these because I want to make sure. Yep, all of those are fine. So now I want to go all the way over to the toolbox menu. And I definitely like to see my audio signals. You don't have to, but that's what tells you if you're getting audio. If you're using audio through the camera, some people do not use audio through the camera, so you don't need that. And then touch operation on HDMI settings. This is what we want next. HDMI settings, resolution, set it to 1080p. It also can work in auto, but I have had people tell me that they don't get any picture, and then as soon as they put it to 1080p, they do get a picture. Do not set it to 1080i. That is interlaced. You don't want interlaced. Interlaced is like old school TV. And then this is the most important one, HDMI info for display. So as you can see, when I come to the camera right now, I'm going to go to the camera, you see all the crap on the screen, all of this stuff right here on screen, that is not good. You don't want that. You do not want all that stuff on the screen. So in order to shut that off so that it's just the camera, go into menu, HDMI settings, HDMI info display, turn that off, and boom. Now we've got a clean signal. And there you go. Now your camera, your A5100 is set up to stream. It is a little bit like the autofocus system is more contrast based. It's not as good as the camera that I'm getting ready to set up, the A6100. The A6100 is so much better. Do you guys have any questions on the A5100 before I move on to the A6100? And then I got to go downstairs and grab the ZV1. I don't have it up here, so I'll take a little bit of a music break before I go do that. But anybody have any questions right now about the A5100? There was just a power outage. Where at? I'm pretty comfortable on camera. I made music for 12 years. Nice. I have a G7X and it shuts off after 3 minutes. David, you might be able to stop that by getting a power adapter. So that's an issue that also happens with the Sonys. But with the Sonys, if you use the power adapter, and that is the battery, it's an adapter that isn't a battery inside. So I can take it out now because this camera's going away, I think, unless somebody asks a question. So, let's see here. Right here, this is the battery adapter. So you just want to get one of these for the G7, and that should make it run indefinitely. It should, in theory. Yes, you do have to buy an adapter for the A6100, yes. Now, here's the thing. You can charge the A6100 and those cameras with the USB, but I do not recommend it because that's when you can get overheating issues. When you're heating up that battery by charging it, that battery can get hot, even when it's just charging. So it's sitting there charging and getting hot and hot and hot, and then it can shut itself down. So the battery eliminates that. And I'm gonna say this, also, do not get the Sony adapter. It's too expensive, one, and several people that I know that have contacted me that were using the Sony battery, their cameras were overheating with that. So use a third party. I'll put links in the description. They're not there now. Any moderator, Callie or Alyssa, if you're here, could you please put the link to this battery and these cameras and stuff in the description right now on YouTube and Facebook so that people can grab these. But the adapters are like, I think I paid $24 for the one that I have here, and I paid $13 for the one I have for my A6600. So, but yes, you do need, yes, for all of these batteries, you need the dummy battery in order to stream because it will shut down if you don't use the dummy battery. And you're also, it'll shut down when your battery runs out. These batteries are not good in these cameras. They don't last very long at all. So yes, do not try to stream with these cameras without the battery adapter. That is critical. And we're gonna put the battery adapters in the description right now. So watch for that. CyberScene, how can I use my 760D as a webcam? I don't know, sorry. I'm not a Canon guy with those. You're just gonna have to Google it and see if you can find anything on Google. Or YouTube, you can search YouTube too. All right, now I'm plugging in the Sony A6100. This is a brand new camera, never used. So I am going to set it up for the first time. You guys are seeing it live. Brand new camera.
You calling me a dummy?
No, he always said,
You big dummy. Come here, you big dummy.
all right. So in order to put in the battery, all you do is open the battery slot, put in the battery, and then it has this little tiny door that opens up so that you can still shut the door. Boom. Lock it in, and it's in there. Now the camera will power up. I'm going to plug in the HDMI cable, and you got your cables on the side there. Like I said, you could charge this with USB, but that's a good way to overheat the battery. So A6100 is $750 on Amazon, only $40 less than the 6400. Well, but get it with body only. Don't get the kit lens. You guys, the kit lens is horrible on that. If you have to, it's fine. But if you get it without the kit lens, it's cheaper than that $750. So, and I think quite a bit cheaper. But get the body only, and then get this lens. This is a $400 lens. This is not this one. The Sigma 16 millimeter. This lens. This is a 30 millimeter. You don't want that one unless you have a reason for a 30 millimeter. Nearly updated price. Maybe it's a. I don't think it's a nearly updated camera. Okay, so now I'm going to show you something. Whoa. That is the wrong. What was I going to show you? Oh, the dial. All right, the first thing you're going to want to do on this camera is set this dial you're going to want to turn it over to video mode. All right, this is the Sony a6100, a6400, a6600. No, the kit lens works. The kit lens works. Don't get me wrong, it works. It's just not a good lens. You need a lot more light. Like with that kit lens, you have to put a ton of light on you. It's too bright. I don't like it. You don't get a shallow depth of field unless you got enough depth to get it with like a f3 or whatever. They're just not great lenses. It works okay. So you're right with okay. What would be the reason for a 30mm? A distance. I mean, I use it for my overhead shot. This depends on, because it has to be further away. If you want in a shot like I got, it has to be a lot further away. So, all right. So number one, making sure it's in video mode, then fire it up. Okay, and I've got to do the initial setup. I guess I can do this on camera so you guys can see. So I'm going to set it to English. Enter date and time. I am on the West Coast. Reduce daylight savings. Enter. Okay, that's the initial setup. Now I'm going to want to come in here to let's see. I want to program. So I'm going to go out of video mode, put it back in video mode. And now I'm going to select that, and then I want this to be in manual exposure. Manual exposure is critical so that you have control over all of your settings. So put it in manual. And now again, as you saw me do before, I'm going to turn the back dial and I'm going to adjust this to 1/125 because I'm doing 60 frames per second. I want to double my frame rate. So you can see that number changing down there. If you're at 30 frames per second, again, you want to go 60. If you're at 24, you want to go 50. But don't be streaming in 24 frames per second. This isn't film. We are not filmmakers, we are live streamers. So we stream at a minimum 30. I recommend you stream in 60 because if you've got the bandwidth to stream in 60, always stream in 60 for broadcast. It just looks so much better. All right, so now I've done that, and now I'm going to change, my f-stop. And to do that, there's a dial up here on the top of this camera, right next to the video button.
Oh,
here. Okay, so right here you got the video button, then you got this dial right here. You can barely see it, it's dark, but it's here. And when I change that, that adjusts.
okay. You bastardo. Okay. No. Yeah. Okay. Industry. Lang yun, hindi tada. Shit. So.
The f-stop. So I'll show you that. As I'm adjusting this, watch the f-stop moves. I want to set that to F, to the lowest I got. So
the lowest you
124
got.
is where I'm going to set that.
Okay.
And then I want to push the dial on the back again, this dial on the back. I want to push that to the right.
The lowest. Okay. That's it, the lowest? Okay, the lowest.
That's going to bring up my ISO. I don't want that in auto. I want control of that. So I'm going to set that to 200 again, as that seems to be a pretty decent color for in this studio. So there. Now I've got my basic settings set up. And now I'm going to go into the menu and change all the settings that I have there. So the first thing I'm going to do, at the bandwidth to stream in 60, always stream in 60. For broadcast, it just looks so much better.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now I've done that, and now I'm going to change, my, my f-stop. And to do that, there's a dial up here on the top of this camera, right next to the video button. Go to this shot here. Okay, so right here, you got the video button, then you got this dial right here. You can barely see it, it's dark, but it's here. And when I change that, that adjusts the f-stop. So I'll show you that. As I'm adjusting this, watch the f-stop move.
Now it's all showing like that.
I want to set that to F, to the lowest I got. So 1.4 is where I'm going to set that. And then I want to push the dial on the back again, this dial on the back. I want to push that to the right. That's going to bring up my ISO. I don't want that in auto. I want control of that. So I'm going to set that to 200 again, as that seems to be a pretty decent color for in this studio. So there. Now I've got my basic settings set up. And now I'm going to go into the menu and change all the settings that I have there.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't know. Oops. So on ahead. Damn. Oh, okay. The highest. Fine. Okay. Oh.
So the first thing I'm going to do is get out of this. I don't need that. I don't need that. Don't need focus mode. We want continuous. And then I do focus area center. You can and play with these modes. If you've got a camera, don't be afraid to play with these modes to see what works best for you. I like the
Focus area. Focus area. White. Zone. Center. I think that's the variables. Wherever we want to need it.
I have there. So the first thing I'm going to do is get out of this. I don't need that. I don't need that. Don't need focus mode. We want continuous. And then I do focus area center. You can and play with these modes. If you've got a camera, don't be afraid to be a pretty decent color for in this studio. So there. Now I've got my basic settings set up. And now I'm going to go into the menu and change all the settings that I have there. So the first thing I'm going to do is get out of this. I don't need that. I don't need that. Don't need focus mode. We want continuous. And then I do focus area center. You can and play with these modes. If you've got a camera, don't be afraid to play with these modes to see what works best for you. I like the center, because if I hold something in the center of this shot, I have to make sure I get to the center. But if I hold something in the center, it finds it a lot easier if I know that I'm in the center. So that's what I like. But you can set it to whatever you want. And then I'm going to go to this one, ISO, none of these. Hey, thank you so much for the super chat, Gary. Oh, Sammy, thank you for the super chat earlier too. Why is that audio not playing? Oh, it is.
White balance.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Gary. Thanks for the 6100 setup. You are welcome. All right, so now I keep going. Don't need any of this. 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 Autofocus drive speed. Okay, here we go. This is what I also set to fast on this one.
Hold on.
Because I want it to be fast.
Auto. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's speed fast. Okay.
Autofocus tracking. I like it to be responsive.
Auto focus. Responsive.
And then your audio recording stuff, audio display, yes. All right, that's all for that stuff. Yeah, okay, so now we're gonna go all the way over to the toolbox again. And then toolbox, now we've got a couple things that we're gonna change here that are very important. I'm gonna set the power start save time to 30 minutes. And then this is an important one. This is what can cause your camera to overheat or not overheat. Put this auto power off temp on high. I'm going to ask you to prioritize recording time. Would you like to change this? Yes, I would. Now it will not overheat unless you're recording 4K for like a very long time. And then I'm going to go into HDMI settings and HDMI resolution. I'm gonna so if you're wanting to stream out in 4K, which you shouldn't be streaming in 4K, but if you want to pull in a 4K signal, this is what you would. Select. I always choose 1080p. I do not choose auto. That is just what I have found to work, because I find auto sometimes with certain capture cards, it doesn't know what it's putting out. So it's like, what's going on? You set it to 1080p, it knows exactly what you're sending. And then I always do 60p for the output. And now we're gonna go HDMI display off and our shot's gonna come on. Boom, there we go.
Wait.
Pro LCT 240. Awesome camera. This auto power off temp on high. Going to ask you to prioritize recording time. Would you like to change this? Yes, I would. Now it will not overheat unless you're recording 4K for like a very long time. And then I'm going to go into HDMI settings and HDMI resolution. I'm going to so if you're wanting to stream out in 4K, which you shouldn't be streaming in 4K, but if you want to pull in a 4K signal, this is what you would select. I always choose 1080p. I do not choose auto. That is just what I have found to work, because I find auto sometimes with certain capture cards, it doesn't know what it's putting out. So it's like, what's going on? You set it to 1080p, it knows exactly what you're sending. And then I always do 60p for the output. And now we're gonna go HDMI display off, and our shot's gonna come on. Boom, there we go. Lewitt Pro LCT 240. Awesome camera. Really close. This is not a macro lens. This is the 30 millimeter. The 16 millimeter would focus on that a little bit better. 30 millimeter is, you know, you got to have quite a bit of distance. That's the 6400 that I'm using up there. Same camera. So the setup that I just showed you, that works for the 6100, the 6400, and the 6600. Those are basically the exact same menu system. So there you go. That's how to set those up. Now, who wants to see the ZV-1, the Sony ZV-1? Anyone? The
No.
only thing is I don't have a dummy battery yet for this. Charges fully with the USB, so you don't have to worry about what I was saying with this camera because the battery is so much smaller. Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much, Gary, for the super chat, and thank you, Sammy, for yours earlier. So I'll go get the ZV-1 and set that up. Okay, so I'll be right back. I'm gonna turn on some music, and I don't know what you guys can do. Why don't you guys in the comments, oops, list, because it's not gonna take me long. You guys in the comments, talk about what cameras you have. I'm gonna go get this, I'll be right back.
Damn. How about it?
A lot of Sonys. Fuji. The outfit's awesome. So many different cameras. So many different cameras. This is where it would be nice to have somebody here that could jump on camera while I go run errands or go grab stuff. What am I? I think I'm rolling on something. Whoa, there we go. All right.
The highest in the middle.
Sony ZV-1. Here we go. Let's set it up for streaming.
Oh, God.
Unplug this from here.
Let's go.
One of the things that I like about the ZV-1 is the fact that you can, when you open it up, like when I just open it, watch, boom, open,
Yeah.
It turns on. Turns on, and it's ready to go, ready to start recording. So you don't miss those awesome vlogging opportunities that come your way. It's kind of a cool feature. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna plug this into the HDMI. I really do like this camera, I really do. For just a point and shoot, like run and gun vlogging camera, it's amazing. Jennifer and I are doing a vlog over on Facebook, and this is the camera. We both are using this camera, so it's been working out really great. If you want to follow that, it's Soupsies on Facebook. So if you want to see what the vlogs look like with this camera, if the mods could put that link in here, I can't type it in there right now. Thank you, by the way. All right, so ZV-1, here we go. I'm gonna go into, they've got a mode button on top, okay? Let me go full screen and show you. You got this mode button. You got mode, you got record. We're gonna go into mode, all right? And let me go, I have to go into, hold on a second. I gotta go into the menu and turn on HDMI info so you can see this. Info display on, there we go. So now you can see it. So now we're gonna go in mode. I keep this thing in intelligent auto and video. I do not take it out of that. It's amazing. Jennifer and I are doing a vlog over on Facebook, and this is the camera. We both are using this camera, so it's been working out really great. If you want to follow that, it's Soupsies on Facebook. So if you want to see what the vlogs look like with this camera, if the mods could put that link in here, I can't type it right now. Thank you, by the way. All right, so ZV1, here we go. I'm gonna go into, so you've got a mode button on top, okay? Let me go full screen and show you. You got this mode button. You got mode, you got record. We're gonna go into mode, all right? And let me go, I have to go into, hold on a second. I gotta go into the menu and turn on HDMI info so you can see this. Info display on, there we go. So now you can see it. So now we're gonna go in mode. I keep this thing in intelligent auto and video. I do not take it out of that. I like all the other cameras to be in manual. This one, it does so good in auto that I just leave it, everything. So it adjusts my my ISO, my shutter speed, the ND filter that it has, adjusts that all automatically. I don't have to do anything. So I just leave it in that mode and it works great. So, and that's the video mode, not this mode here. That's intelligent auto for photos. This is intelligent auto for video. So I go in there and then I click on the menu. And let's go back to the very first tab. Oops, went too fast. And I don't really do anything in here because this is mostly photos, but focus mode, we want continuous, and then focus area, again, we want center. Back into the menu. And then face, autofocus. This you can set up. I turn it on, human detection. You can do it for pets too. But this is generally for photos, not video, but it does do the eye tracking. So I do set that up for that. And then let's see, that's it for that. Oh, soft skin effect. You can turn that on if you want. That's the beauty filter thing. Jennifer loves it. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't need it. I don't need a beauty filter. I mean, come on, look at this face. Do I look like I need a beauty filter? Oh, shoot. Okay, anyway, back to reality. So, focus, yeah, so that is all of that. Now we are in menu 2, which is video stuff. So we're just gonna go through autofocus drive speed. We wanna set that to fast. And we wanna set tracking sensitivity to responsive. And then we just wanna keep on going. We wanna keep on doing. Oh, wait. Oh yeah. Okay. Nothing on there. All right, so now we're gonna jump all the way over to the toolbox again. And we are going to go to power save start time, set it to 30 minutes, power off monitor. We don't want that. Oh yeah, that's where you open it up and shut it and it goes off and on. So I turn that to power off. So if I shut the monitor, the power's up. Auto power off tech, you want this on high again. I was going to ask you to verify that. And then that's it for that one. And then as soon as you're done with that, boom, come into HDMI settings. You're going to set it to 1080p and 60 frames. And then HDMI info display, we're going to shut that off. And all of a sudden, we're going to be, boom, doing the camera. But this thing, I'm telling you, this camera is such a good camera. But I don't really recommend it for streaming. For your main camera, because look, if I were to have this mounted where this one is, you can see that the 20 millimeter is a little bit higher than my 16.
Requirements is a government program giving
It's a little bit tighter. I'm thinking exactly where it's
Who wouldn't love to get rid of their cell phone bill? Contracts? Gone.
all the
Monthly
same.
bill? Gone.
That's because of the
Fees?
crap on
Totally
it. So
gone.
those of you
New
that know the
customers are getting a
A60,
new tech.
the ASPC.
This is a limited time offer, so sign up now. Visit QLinkWireless.com.
Looks like that top is talking to you about 24 millimeters because that's not much different. So just FYI,
You know what
that's
they
pretty cool.
say. If it's rough,
But yeah, so it's a lot. Look at the color; it's a lot different what it does with colors and stuff. But this is on 100% auto, and I found that in most situations, like going outside and stuff like that, it does a great job of compensating. Like the ND filter goes on when it needs to. So I could sit here and play with the settings, and I could put it in manual. This is a great manual camera as well. But I found that for ease of use, I just grab it and go. And then for keeping this thing charged, what you're gonna, I just started recording.
Not only were they able to traverse this difficult
For this, you will charge it via the USB that's right here on the side, not a dummy battery. So this one you can charge perfectly fine with USB, and it's not USB-C, it's USB micro. So which a lot of us have tons of those micro cables laying around. So find one and use it and keep it charged. You can keep it charged with a battery pack, which I do when we go IRL streaming. We just throw a battery pack on and it's in there. So do that. There you go. That is how you set up the Sony cameras for live streaming. Now I'm gonna
If you recently bought the Sony A6400,
I like that guy.
sure you probably have already heard, Sony Mini systems aren't necessarily the easiest to learn right off the bat, but this video will be diving deep with every last thing you said and how I have my A6400 set up for video. We're going to be jumping into it right now. Here's what I'm here to say. If you're listening to the TV, helping you simplify the video creation process. So whether that's diving deep into a tech video like we'll be doing today, or video marketing tips to help you marry your business marketing with your video content strategy, both are here on the channel, so definitely consider subscribing. So today we're going to be looking into the Sony A6400 menu setting. We're going to be diving deep, so I don't even want to waste any time. Let's get to it. So you do at least want to make sure that you have your battery in your camera, and you want to make sure it's on. And the dial setting that you need to be on is the movie mode. It kind of looks like an old film reel a little bit, but that's what we're going to be doing. From there, let's get into the menu. One of the things I want to first point out to you is that when you're looking at your menu on your camera, it isn't as complex as everybody makes it out seem. Like Sony's this big boogeyman in the basement that nobody wants to deal with, but you gotta go do your laundry. So one of the things we should understand before we're getting into the menu system is if you're coming from Canon, like if you own the Canon M50, you upgraded to the Sony or the Sony cameras, these older menu systems, or these are actually one of their newer ones minus what comes out with the A7S3 cameras, and probably whatever to come out after that. These systems are set up in the same way. You have one tab that is specifically to go through photo-based, maybe autofocus type kinds of settings. You have the other one that is set for more movie-focused settings and audio and things like that. The other setting that you have is set for your networks or anything that you're doing when it comes to wireless connectivity, Bluetooth, maybe something dealing with the app. That's primarily where those things are going to be. Then you have the playback screen. That's if you're reviewing any kind of pictures or video, when you hit that play button on the back of your camera, those are the things that you would be going through to adjust for those. You don't have to do a lot on this one, so we really don't need to go through much. Then the next one is the setup menu. And so these are going to get into more deeper settings of the actual camera. Maybe setting up your custom function buttons and going through your volume settings and some other things that are more, a little bit more technical, but doesn't always focus on the video. But you will find some video settings and things that impact your video and live streaming setup here. And then finally, we have the My Menu settings. And these sub-tabs will be as many as you need them to be on this one, because this is something that's specific to you. I will be going through this in the video to show you the specifics of what I personally prefer to use when it comes to me setting up my camera for video, so that I don't need to go through every last tab or every last sub-tab when I'm searching for something. I just want to know if I want to go from regular videos to slow motion, how do I do that? If I want to change the audio levels, can I set a button to that and just have it automatically, set there all the time? If I want to make some adjustments for a tutorial style video like today, and I need to change things a little bit versus my regular production work and change that setting back real quick. Those are the kinds of things I like to put in the My Menu. So let's go ahead and get into the menu tab number 1. So I'm not going to describe what every little thing is. You can hit on the buttons at the bottom and it'll give you a short description if you want to. But my camera is set to movie because we're going through the video focus settings. So some of these that are grayed out, you won't necessarily see the ability to change it. And if you do want to change it, it'll tell you like, oh, you need to change this other thing before you can get over to the to change this one. And so for me, I have the file format. This is currently set at JPEG. If I am taking a picture, maybe you're sending that off to have somebody color grade that picture for you or something like that, or thumbnails. I actually have my photo settings set to JPEG plus RAW. You can't change that right now, but these are what I have currently. JPEG image style, I have it set to large, so 20 megapixels, I believe that's what that is for. They have some other ones here, but I just go ahead and use the largest one, and then if I want to crop in, then I can do that without losing a whole bunch of details. Aspect ratio is 6:9. So if you're deciding that you want to take pictures for thumbnails, and maybe you have a few shirts lined up, things like that day, and you're just, doing poses, changing your shirts, I like to use 16:9 because that's what I'm going to use for YouTube. If I want to crop in, then I can do that. Other than that, I don't change these other things that are grayed out anyway. So let's go over to the next tab. Long exposure, noise reduction, I have this turned to off because I don't want it trying to fix anything. And it's like you can have it and give you the description when you hit that trash can button, but I don't want to do that. And so I'm just going to go back. High ISO noise reduction, I have that set to normal. The color space, this is actually really important. You don't want to be in this Adobe RGB. If you're just getting started, just stick with the RGB, that's standard RGB. Lens comp, I'm just going to leave everything pretty much set to auto. I'm not trying to adjust for anything specific to the lens. Let's go over to the next tab, tab 3. Okay, most of these things that are grayed out, there's nothing for me to adjust for here. Bracket settings are, most of this stuff is pretty much going to stay how it is set inside the box. Interval shoot function. This is if you're getting into time lapse. Again, that's more of a photo kind of a thing. We'll get into that in a different video, so we're not going to test that right now. Tab 4. Now, this is something that is a huge help, especially once you want to get to the point that you can do what I teach my clients, which is the record to edit process. You're recording in such a way that when by the time you're ready to take it into editing, you're not having to do a lot. So this menu actually is super helpful. So in a future video, I'll actually walk through this specifically on how you can set up your settings and lock in every single thing that you have. So that's how I get a consistent look for my live stream. I don't need to re-figure out what my settings were. I'm able to set the memory in the camera to remember everything from the white balance, the shutter speed, the ISO, like all of it, how bright or dark it should be, how much blurry background I want, depending on the lens. All of that is set in the camera. So when it's time for me to live stream, whereas if I just came from vlogging, all I have to do is go pick that memory setting, and this one will stay there for me, and you can register your custom shoot settings if you need to, but again, we'll cover that in a different video. Okay, let's go over to menu tab number 5. This one covers the autofocus number 1. I do make some changes for this a little bit. I do have it set to continuous autofocus. If I'm specifically needing to adjust something, we can go into manual focus, but I try not to do that. I do have some other hard custom function buttons set up for that. Again, we'll cover that a little bit later, but for now, that's in continuous autofocus. The priority set in AFS and AFC are autofocus continuous or autofocus single shot or something like that. I just try to balance emphasis, and I'll just leave that set there. The focus area is set to wide. You can play around with this a little bit. I tend not to, simply because for video, wide is going to basically cover this whole box or this whole area. And if I put something up, then it'll focus on that or whatever the case. And all of these can be specific. So let's say it's a bunch of cars, a bunch of faces, you're in like a New York and it's heyday kind of a setting, or kind of a, outdoor setting. And you only really want to focus on this specific area of your face, because that's about the motion and the range that you would move. Then you can set it to something like the zone. So it's like only focus right here. Don't worry about anything that comes and goes outside of this right here. So that can be helpful for that. And we have some of these other ones. Again, I tend not to mess with these because for most of the videos that I'm doing, probably about 9.78 out of 10, I have it set to wide. And so that's what I have that set on. Focus area, to all of them, because at any given time I may want to change something. I don't want to have to go through the menu to figure out where something is. So I just leave that alone. Switch VHAF area. I just have to set to autofocus point and autofocus area. Again, not diving deep into what these mean specifically, but that's what I have that set at. Tag number 6. Most of these are pretty much will stay exactly as you out of 10. I have it set to wide, and so that's what I have that set on. Focus area limit, I leave these set to all of them because at any given time I may want to change something. I don't want to have to go through the menu to figure out where something is, so I just leave that alone. Switch VHAF area, I just have to set to autofocus point and autofocus area, in like zone, so it's like only focus right here. Don't worry about anything that comes and goes outside of this right here. So that can be helpful for that. And like you have some of these other ones. Again, I tend not to mess with these because for most of the videos that I'm doing, probably about 9.78 out of 10, I have it set to wide. And so that's what I have that set on. Focus area limit, I leave these set to all of them because at any given time I may want to change something. I don't want to have to go through the menu to figure out where something is. So I just leave that alone. Switch VHAF area, I just have to set to autofocus point and autofocus area. Again, not diving deep into what these.
Why did you do that?
Mean specifically, but that's what I have that set at. Tag number 6. Most of these are tend not to mess with these because for most of the videos that I'm doing, probably about 9.78 out of 10, I have it set to wide, and so that's what I have that set on. Focus area limit, I leave these set to all of them because at any given time I may want to change something. I don't want to have to go through the menu to figure out where something is, so I just leave that alone. Switch VHAF area, I just have to set to autofocus point and autofocus area. Again, not diving deep into what these mean specifically, but that's what I have that set at. Tag number 6, most of these are pretty much will stay exactly as you see on the screen, and this should be pretty much how you have your stuff set out of the box. You shouldn't need to change any of these things, but when it comes to the face and the eye autofocus, then I do like to have mine set on the human, because in these new Sony cameras, the a6400, 6600, and so on, you have where you can have human detection autofocus, or you can have it set to animal eye autofocus. And I prefer to have it actually set to human because I'm a human, so I have it set there. So the right, left eye select is based on the photo settings. In the Sony a6600, you will get the eye autofocus in video. That's not a feature the a6400 has, but that is available in photo mode. So I let it pick auto, so whichever eye is closer is the one that works. Face detection frame display, I do have that set to on, so I know when the autofocus box is being picked up. Animal eye display, so when you're switching over to animal autofocus, it'll pick human because I'm a human, so I have it set there. So the right, left, eye select is the based on the photo settings. In the Sony a6600, you will get the eye autofocus in video. That's not a feature the a6400 has, but that is available in photo mode. So I let it pick auto, so whichever eye is closer is the one that works. Face detection frame display, I do have that set to on, so I know when the autofocus box is being picked up. Animal eye display, so when you're switching over to animal autofocus, it'll pick up the eye of the animal and show you it on the box. When it comes to photos, again, and we'll do another video potentially for the a6600 in settings, but for the photo side, you do want that enabled. So when you do your thumbnails, you do have that option where it just snaps to your face or snaps to your eye to make sure everything that you want is in focus. Autofocus with shutter, I do have this turned to on because if I'm getting ready to record or something like that, or whatever the case is, I do want to go ahead and make sure that focus snaps to exactly where I'm pointing to, and that's easy to do as you're pressing the button. And we'll do another video potentially for the a6600 in settings, but for the photo side, you do want that enabled. So when you do your thumbnails, you do have that option where it just snaps to your face or snaps to your eye to make sure everything that you want is in focus. Autofocus with shutter, I do have this turned to on because if I'm getting ready to record or something like that, or whatever the case is, I do want to go ahead and make sure that focus snaps to exactly where I'm pointing to, and that's easy to do as you're pressing the button. So it's like a half press, and then you fully press it all the way down to go ahead and snap the picture and start the video. So that is on, and pre-autofocus is on as well. So tab 7 of this autofocusing menu, the AF3, I'm not going to do a whole lot here. The AF area auto clear is set to off. Display continuous autofocus area is set to on. Circulate or circular of whatever a focus point that's set to does not circulate. So just pretty much leave this standard. Now we're over in the exposure tab, sub tab number 8 here, and exposure compensation, I don't really adjust for those or anything like that. And plus this is grayed out right now. If you hit it, it's like, oh, you're in auto ISO at the moment, or whatever the case is. So there's nothing for us to do or change. We do want to make a few other changes when it comes to the ISO setting. This will allow you to adjust the range. I want this to be as high as I want it to be. I don't want it to, be limited because I never know what situation I'm going to be in. So I want it to be as high or as low as it can go. So 102,400 is the max. So I'm gonna leave it at the max. The metering mode I have set to multi-phase priority, and multimeter is on. Spot center or spot metering point, I have that set to center. Now this next one is exposure step. I do make an adjustment here so that as I'm adjusting like the ISO, which deals with how bright or dark something is, I do want to be able to make smaller increments so it's not huge jumps in like super dark to normal brightness to super bright. I'm able to get incremental and small changes. So I do have that exposure value set to 0.3. Exposure tab number 2 or sub tab number 9, I just have this set to auto. There's nothing that I'm changing in here with this stuff, so I just leave this alone. The flash is not anything that I've ever used when it comes to doing video. Usually I have a light, even a small one with me. However, the exposure compensation set, I do have that set to ambient and flash. So tab number 11, let's go over to the color, the white balance, and the imaging processing tab here. Now I do make some changes here because this does affect the color. It affects your skin tones. It affects whether your walls actually look white or if they look yellow when they shouldn't. So, or if they look yellow when they should look white, and they shouldn't, and vice versa, what have you. So now currently in this camera, it is set to custom. There's going to be another video where we'll walk you through how to get accurate colors, especially if you're just shooting standard, or even if you're exploring color grading a little bit, you still want to set your custom white balance. Again, get into that in a later video, so mine is set to custom. If you don't have what you need to set the custom white balance, which would be a gray card or something like that, then I would leave this in auto for now. There are some other options that you have available, but for me personally, auto white balance is fine, I guess. but I try not to be there. So I have mine set at custom 3 because I have a custom setting for the white balance to make sure the table is not looking yellow, it's actually white like it should look in real life. Priority set in AWB or auto white balance. I tend to go with an ambience type of look. Now, if you just look at the actual picture that's coming out of the camera, it makes some slight or incremental changes when it comes to that. But when it comes to skin tones, for real, it does make a difference. And I just prefer ambience. Is not a right or wrong here. I just prefer ambience, being somebody with being a person of color. I have bronze skin. I don't want to really, there's certain things that I found, I'll just put it this way, in doing videos, I prefer ambience priority, even in the Canons and stuff like that, it's slightly warmer look versus it being super, super white and stuff like that. Again, more in the video about white balance. Dynamic range optimizer, you can have this set to auto, you can have it set to level 1, and it kind of helps with the dynamic range or how dark and bright things are. You can kind of leave this set to auto, or you can leave it specifically set to a certain level. I mean, it's really a preference at this point. You can look more into this if you want. I tend not to use it for real, but it's kind of set to auto, so I'll leave it. Now here's a setting that not a lot of people are familiar with. You've seen, maybe if you're coming from a Canon camera, then you have like the standard, the portrait, the faithful, picture profiles, because they don't have log footage that allows you to go from a flatter image to a more stylistic look or a color graded image. But with the creative style, you have standard, you have vivid, you have neutral, you have clear, you have deep, and on and on and on. That gives you different kinds of looks. And so if you're not familiar with color grading, you're going to different looks. These are kind of fun or interesting to play around with. I tend to leave mine at standard if I'm doing like a live stream, for example. So if you've enjoyed the way that live streams look, I haven't started introducing Let's Live, for color grading with that yet, but I have mine pretty much set to standard, and I make small adjustments from there. But that is what you can have your set at if you're new. The picture effect is another area where it's like not really talked about because more people use this more professionally, but sometimes it's fun to play with these. You have the toy effect or the pop effect and so on and so on. And all of these kind of like stylistic kind of choices and things like that you can use and play around with. So I don't tend to mess with these too much unless I'm playing around with a type of video perhaps, but it's there if you want. Now the picture profile is something that goes into actual color grading and things like that. And so again, you can start to play around with this. They give you a lot of spaces. They do give you a lot of log profiles if you want to start experimenting with color grading. And so you can literally go through all of these if you prefer. I do color grade my videos a little bit. Not doing anything specific with it, but if I'm using standard in that creative style, like for the live streams, then I have this picture profile set to off. When I get ready to actually start color grading, then I'll go and pick a log profile and go through all those different things for that. But otherwise, I'm just getting started and leave the set to off. Submenu tab number 12, I have the soft skin effect off. Again, if you're using photos, you may prefer this or like this. I tend not to. And then shutter, auto white balance lock, I have that set to off, and that's more photo-based stuff. So number 13 is a little interesting. If you've ever had a lens that manually focuses, or you need to turn off the autofocus and manually focus, like if you're too close to something, then you can adjust for the focus magnifier that will allow you to really punch in and adjust so that you can spin the lens for yourself and really start to focus and things like that on a specific area. I don't want to do that right now, but at the same time, I do want to make some adjustments slightly to customize this menu. So I do want to use the focus magnification timer. I set that to no time limit because I don't want to be trying to dial in manual focus on something. And maybe I'm looking at my phone or text comes through or something, or reviewing notes, and then that magnifying box goes away. When I'm done with it, then I'll put it away. So I just have mine set to no limit. Initial focus magnification that tells you how much you can punch in or out. So I don't like to zoom all the way in at this, point or 5.9 magnification. 1 times magnification is enough. Autofocus and focus magnification, you can have that set to on. Manual focus assist, I have mine currently set to off. The last one on this menu here is the peaking setting. Peaking helps you when it comes to trying to manually focus on something. So I do have this set to on. The color will vary in specific for the environment that you're in. So if you're outdoors and you're trying to focus manually on a leaf, and obviously leaves are green most of the time, then I don't want to pick something that is not going to be easy to identify. And so I have mine set to hide when it comes to the strength of it, because the more dots I see, the more in focus I know that thing is, the less I see, the more out of focus it is. So I change this periodically.
Do you need to share again?
Periodically, depending on the environment or what I'm shooting in. And the last time was set to yellow because that was easy to identify comparative to like a red or a blue or even a white. Something else interesting that the Sony cameras have is the ability to register your face so that when it sees your face, it knows to prioritize focusing on that versus somebody else's face. So you can take a few photos of yourself and the last time was set to yellow because that was easy to identify compared to like a red or a blue or even a white. Something else interesting that the Sony cameras have is the ability to register your face so that when it sees your face, it knows to prioritize focusing on that versus somebody else's face. So you can take a few photos of yourself and register your face. I tend to do a few expressions, which would be the first one, which would be just a blank and a straight face. The next one would be a smile with no teeth. The other one, a smile with teeth. And then maybe you can do some more like with or without glasses, depending on what you prefer. But those three usually gets the job done. All right, so we're halfway there because there's not a whole lot more surprisingly to get through, but this one will dive a little bit deeper because we're covering the video settings. So in movie one, this is something that I do find important. I prefer to be in manual exposure because these different ones, program auto, aperture priority, all of these do something slightly different, but I prefer to actually set the ISO, set the aperture, and all those different things myself. I don't want the camera making decisions for me. If you're completely new, maybe all that stuff is kind of foreign to you, then you can set yours to program auto and the camera will decide what it thinks is best when it comes to how bright or dark something should be, and all the other settings in between. Again, for me personally, I prefer to start teaching in manual because it's not something that's hard to learn. It just takes something that gets a little bit of time to get used to. So the next thing is going to be the file format, and this is going to be specific to like, do you want to record in 4K or HD, or it has the ABC HD mode. I don't tend to use that at all. I prefer to use 4K or HD. And so if I'm using 4K, the screen kind of goes a little dark there. But at the same time, I can't do that while I'm connected up right now because this particular setup doesn't allow for me to stream in 4K. So I'm going to leave that set to HD. The next setting is going to be dealing with the frame rate.